Welcome to the Three Deep in the Boot podcast. With another season officially in the books, it's time for what we always love to do, our way too early look at next year and what Louisiana high school football might have in store. New faces, new expectations, and plenty of storylines already beginning to take shape. Before we get into that, we do want to take a moment to share a quick update with y'all um, regarding this podcast going forward. One of the original members of this project, Luke, he'll be stepping away from it, and that's going to be in the future and indefinitely. Being said, we want to sincerely thank him for everything he's contributed and wish him nothing but the best as he pursues his own media projects, specifically in the space of music and other creative spaces. We're proud of him and excited to see where he goes. As for us, don't worry. Matthew and I have big plans ahead. We've added new people behind the camera to help with filming and coverage. And while we're growing, this will always remain a local grassroots project, just simply based off of passion. At the core, it's still Matthew and I putting in the hours, editing, uploading, social media, building stats, reaching out to sponsors, reaching out to people to go live stream games, all of that. And a lot of work goes into this. And while it's not for everyone, we're fully committed to continuing to grow this the right way. So it's as enjoyable for, y'all as an audience as it is for us. And yeah, with that being said, let's look ahead because the road to next season starts right now. So first of all, here we are going to begin with some classifications and district changes for the 2026-2027 school year and season. So schools moving up from 4A to 5A. We're going to start Peabody, St. Thomas More. Schools moving down from 5A to 4A. Most notable is Neville. They had a very good season last season. Excuse me. And it's going to be very interesting to see if they can dominate 4A with that roster because they were able to do, one hell of a job, the past few years up there with 5A. So now that they've, dropped an enrollment and everything, or just moving down in general, and kind of see what happens with that. Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think really anyone in that district is going to challenge them too much. Maybe Franklin Parish are still pretty good with a few D1 commits there, but when you go from Ash, Washita, Ruston, and West Monroe to Franklin Parish, Tiger, West Washita, and Wassman, there's going to be a natural drop in just general who you're competing against. But that's not to say, Wassman and West Washita are both kind of back on the up. Tiger is always pretty good, and Franklin.
Yeah, it's not to say they're not going to give them a challenge. It's just not going to be to the same level of, I guess I could say, talent or competition of 5A, but it's not that far off at the same time. So it's, like I said, like you said, it's not Ruston. You're not, none of that, but still. I'm surprised
but even then, they are still playing. They're playing Evangel and Alexandria in the regular season anyway.
Are they not playing West Monroe still?
Their full schedule isn't out, but I would assume they're playing Ruston because that's always been a rivalry.
I would assume they're playing
end up on there too.
I'm assuming West Monroe and Ruston are like two guaranteed games still.
I would say West Monroe not as much, but very much Ruston. That game, while not being confirmed, is almost certainly happening, I would think.
Historic rivalry. I mean, you have to. There's no way you don't keep it. I mean, in my eyes, for North Louisiana high school football, that's a very important rivalry to keep.
I mean, they did it the whole time when Neville was back in 4A and Ruston was in 5A. They kept that, and they just dropped in the mid 90s when Neville dropped down. So I would think they're still keeping that together.
100%. So now we have schools moving up from lower classifications to 4A. So Lake Charles College Prep, they're going from 3A to 4A. Acadiana Renaissance, 3A to 4A. Lafayette Renaissance, 2A to 4A. Big jump for Lafayette Renaissance. They had a very good season last year for the most part, at least the way they started out. Credit to them. Madison Prep, 3A to 4A. John F. Kennedy, 3A to 4A. And really interesting here, Young Audiences Charter is going from 3A to 4A. They grew.
Well, so it was 23, I believe, when their first year as like the kind of that first year in their transition year, they were 4A. They were classed 4A, but obviously they weren't for playoffs or anything. And then last year they went down to 3A in that reclass, and they're back up to 4A, and they got a district. Shaw, Bell, and Bell Chase in there too.
And they were decent last year, and they were pretty
They
decent.
ran through their district last year. Granted, I mean, Fisher, Haynes, Jefferson, Rice, Patrick Taylor, and
Yeah,
Thomas Jefferson.
I mean, hey, but you got to also look. Haynes was good. That was a great game, Haynes and young audience
Yeah,
last
no,
year.
it was a good game. It's just that's a step up to Shaw and Bell Chase.
It's a big step up, but it'll be interesting how they handle it. I don't have high expectations for them this year. I'm not sure how much of their roster they are returning, but just with that increase in competition, I just think it's going to be very hard for them this year until they can kind of get a roster together to compete at that level, I think.
And even
And
even the way they finished that season is three straight road games. They're at Willow, they're at Bell Chase, and at Shaw. Is the
yeah,
way they finished this
I mean
upcoming season.
that's
So
a rough ending. I
yeah,
mean,
even if you had one of them at home, that would be rough. But to have all three of those back to back to back on the road, to have to go to Bell Chase or go to Shaw, that's still rough.
yeah, 100%. Now let's get into schools moving down from 4A to 3A. Um, so Loyola Prep is going down to 3A. That is interesting to me, I think.
I say Loyola was already they were one of the smallest 3As already,
Yeah,
but they moved up to 4A because there's not really a 3A in Shreveport, so it was just for logistically and travel purposes, it was easier to just do 4A in Shreveport. Because now they got 3A, they got Bastrop, Carroll, North Webster, and Starlington.
yeah,
That's like a 2.5 hour drive to Bastrop. And even
yeah.
Carroll and Starlington are still bad. North Webster is still like an hour away.
And Loyola Prep, I mean, they had a good run last year too. It was just that unfortunate, the illness with Bryce Restovich, the quarterback, and everything really
Would
just
they have
hurt
beaten
them.
Shaw? Maybe
I,
not, but it would have been maybe
I
not, but
mean,
it would have been a lot closer.
it would have been a lot closer. We really don't know how that would have gone, but it would have been a hell of a game. We'll put
But a
it
lot of
there.
the guys are coming back for that, so there could be
Bryce
an
Restovich is
issue.
coming back, I'm pretty sure.
They could be an issue there. I think they're gonna be down in Division 3 as well, which might actually hurt them more than help them because Division 3 is loaded this year.
100% agree, but at the same time, with how well they played in 4A last year, even though 4A was a little bit weaker, I think they're still going to be able to compete and they're going to do some damage. I think they're still going to be at the top. Now, whether they're going to be at the very top, that's a question, but they'll still be at the top in that group of teams.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's going to be tough with you got University Lab in there, Calvary's in there.
Well, we don't know how you lab now that they have, I don't know if they'll be starting Knox Kiffin.
We'll see. Dunham, Lafayette Christian's in there. Notre Dame's always going to be a challenge.
Mm.
It's definitely going to be tough to kind of get through Division 3 this year.
And I'm sure they know that. But at the same time, they also could be thinking, "Hey, this, we're going down. Look how well we played." A lot of the players may be thinking this, and hey, we're going to
And
go dominate this year. We're going down. It's going to be easier. No, it's
I don't know how I missed them. St. Charles Catholic's in Division 3 as well. I don't know how you just miss that. But I mean, they gave themselves a pretty challenging schedule. I mean, they're playing Captain Shreve Parkway and Northwood,
yeah.
so I think a lot of that too is trying to keep because you're gonna be going very far early or late in the season with
We
districts.
also want
Kind
those
of keep
power.
early in the
You want
season,
those
yeah,
points as well.
but early in the season, kind of keep you around Shreveport as you kind of figure out what your team is. Even though I think obviously they have a pretty good idea, but sometimes you never know. You think you have everything back, and it just collapses. You never really know.
100%. And now to continue with 4A, moving down to 3A, we have Grant, DeRitter, Iowa. They're moving down.
Yeah, it was just one big class that brought them up to 4A 2 years ago, and now they're kind of back to their normal. I don't. Their district is might actually get a little harder, but I'd say it's pretty comparable. I mean, they got DeRitter still, but then Jennings and Westlake could always give them something. St. Louis Catholic seems to always kind of be. I mean, last year their record wasn't good, but they gave a lot of those top teams a struggle. They made them win. So I mean,
I
that's
mean, they
not always.
secured their first ever state championship.
Yeah.
So it's always hard for teams to get back there right after doing it, especially for a team first one ever. I mean, they only beat North DeSoto 50-43. That rough, very insane game, I would say. But it's going to be interesting how that shapes
But yeah,
up with them moving down. I mean,
they moved down to
you win a state
3A,
championship in 4A, and now
but
you're
they're
moving down
still
to
in
3A
Division
this
Two.
season.
They're still going to be in Division
Yeah.
Two, though.
So you see a lot of familiar. I don't know. There's gonna be familiar faces, I think.
Yeah, they're now going to. I mean, it's still the same. I mean, Neville kind of joins that conversation. Like
Hmm.
Neville and Northwood kind of join that conversation there. Westgate joins in Division Two as well. So there's still that whole thing. But I think there's definitely a lot of that was a senior class though, so it'll be kind of tough to come back. But even just make a similar run, even just win a couple games could be something. It's just that division is tough with
Oh,
Neville,
100%.
Westgate, and with them coming back down into it.
And now, some of those games on Iowa's schedule, especially early in the season, will be must watches just to see how they're going to do. No matter who they're playing at the beginning, with non-district, etc. But it's gonna be very interesting. Even if they're playing a few, lower schools trying to just get the wins, which I'm sure they
I
will.
mean, the only non-district game I've got for them is Leesville, and that's always kind of tough. That's a 4A
Yeah.
school. That they're not just going to lay down and die.
Oh yeah, 100%. So we'll continue here from 4A to 3A. So after Iowa, we have Washington, Marion, Eunice, Bel Air, Iastroma moving down, West Feliciana, and Vanderbilt Catholic. Some of those are a little bit of a like, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I can see
Actually,
why, but
yeah.
also I can't
So
believe they're
yeah,
actually doing it.
Bel Air and Estruma were both, I believe, 3A last year anyway.
Hmm.
But then they all played up. But now because of the new playoff rules, they couldn't. Which
Yeah,
is actually why we have two 3A districts in Baton Rouge.
I was sure Struma was going to play up again for another year. It's,
They probably would have along with Bel Air, but because you have to play up to 5A or don't, and Estruma just
they
none of
could
those
no, they would
schools
not
can
be
do
able
5A.
to. They would, yeah, they would not.
Especially because
It
where
would
you'd
be
be thrown
awful.
into, you'd be thrown into Catholic, Zachary, Central.
Yeah, you just
Yeah, no.
don't want that.
I mean, Estruma, I mean, it's Baker, Bel Air, and Glen Oaks and mentorship in that district along with
Yeah.
them. They'll definitely be. I think these Baton Rouge districts are actually kind of interesting, especially this one, because I think this is very much anyone's kind of district. I think Estruma and Baker are probably at the top.
Yeah.
But Baton Rouge, with these public schools like this, is much more variable than I think any other public school district in the state.
Oh, 100%. A lot of factors go into it. I'll put it that way.
Because the
So now,
other 3A district, I mean, that's West. It's going to come down to West Feliciana and University Lab.
I mean, I hate to say it, but yeah, it's
Parkview seems to be on the down. I mean, they got a new coach. Maybe that can help something. Port Allen is average, and Collegiate scored like 6 points last year.
yeah. That collegiate is a. I don't want to just go out and say yeah they're a disaster. Yeah, at least at the moment, we'll see what happens this year, but not looking the best. So now we get the schools moving up to 3A. Pope John Paul II moving from 2A to 3A. St. Charles They played up to 4A. They're moving down to 3A.
Yeah, they stayed in 3A again. I think they were actually the smallest 3A school last year. Obviously, Coach Wayne Stein has said they do want to be in the Catholic League eventually. But I
I mean,
kind of
I just don't fit.
I
Like,
like this move though right now because I do not think they would have been ready
I don't
for
think
it.
they're ready for the Catholic League. I think they would get destroyed if they went into the Catholic League this year. I think it's going to be like, as far as my preview on the Catholic League as a whole, I think it's going to be it's going to be a rough year for a few teams, Holy Cross, etc. But I still think Brother Martin's going to be a lot better. Rummel's going to be a lot better. Jesuit, all these teams, and everyone has to play car, and so they lose.
Yeah.
So
I mean, St. Charles, the district kind of obviously you lose Shaw and Bell Chase, but even I mean, you get Lutcher, St. James, Vanderbilt, so it's still a decent district. I think it's maybe not quite on that same par, but when you consider moving down to 3A, I mean, Lutcher, St. James, and Vanderbilt is still a very tough schedule. And then I believe they're playing Riverside in the non-district, and that's always tough.
yeah,
Yeah, they got Riverside in
especially
there.
after
So,
last season, Riverside had an amazing season.
and a lot of that team's coming back too.
It's huge for them. But to continue, schools moving up to 3A. Walter L. Cohen 2A to 3A. That's a little bit of a surprise in my mind. Um, schools moving down to 2A. Richwood. Um, I'm gonna butcher this. Vidalia, right? Yeah,
I think it's Vidalia. It's a Long Island, but yeah.
Vida. Yeah. Starting early. Donaldsonville 3A to 2A, a Meet 3A to 2A, and Pine 3A to 2A. So a lot of those aren't really surprises. I think all of that's expected, if anything. Especially maybe the one surprise is maybe a Meet, but not really.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Amy moved down. I believe it was 2019. They moved down to 2A, and then the next cycle they went back up, and then went back down. But Pine, I think for me, was actually a bit of a surprise when they first moved up to 3A. But they survived two classes up there. But now they are also back down into 2A, so it's definitely interesting. I think something else to look at is Springfield's down to 2A as well, but Springfield was put in the Baton Rouge district, which is interesting because they
They're
haven't been in
not.
a Baton Rouge district in like 25 years. So but I kind of see it because that Baton Rouge was getting kind of odd in 2A, so it
I
makes
mean,
it easier.
Pine went 7-4 last year, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, they did pretty well. I think that district
They were three and
is
two in district, so they ended up being third. So they weren't.
honestly, I think that district is going to come down to the two schools that just came out down from 3A, Amite and Pine. That's going to be those two.
Oh yeah, it's.
Maybe St. Helena or North Lake give them a little bit of a run, but I
I
think it'll
mean,
probably still be Amite or Pine.
Pine only lost to Franklinton 29-14 last year. A Meet 21-6. So there you go, right there. Not as competitive a game as you would imagine, but I think moving down is going to end up helping them. But I think year after year, as long as they are both in 2A, we'll see how long this lasts before I think eventually they'll move up again. It's inevitable in my mind, or at least play up in the next 5 years. But I think a Meet, like you said, it's going to be a Meet and Pine for the next couple of years. Going to be the top two teams in that district, in my opinion. I don't think there's really any other competitors. So schools moving up to 2A, Covenant Christian. That's all there is there. Not surprised. Growing school, just
I think the big thing to look at is for that district for them is the travel. Because being in Homa, before they were going out to kind of along the I-90 corridor south of Lafayette. Now they're going along the I-90 corridor. They're going to Fisher. They do get Homa Christians. That's a little bit of a better travel, but they still have Newman and Country Day as well. So it's a matter of, you're going to still be going an hour, hour and a half to New Orleans at least once for football and probably at least a couple, and then obviously on school nights for the other sports too. But when you really looked at the map, it was them and Homa Christian kind of just there, and there was nowhere else to send them.
yeah, pretty much. Now let's go
Actually,
down
I
to
believe they got moved to 2A because Lafayette Christian got pushed into that kind of South Lafayette district, and with Reed closing, they pushed Covenant Christian up into New Orleans.
That sounds about right. Yeah. But let's get on to schools moving down to 1A. Washington Christian, notable, moving down from 2A to 1A. Obviously,
Yeah,
great ending for them last year. But
kind of over the last 10 years, they kind of have this pattern of maybe every 5 to 6 years they jump up to 2A for a cycle and then back down. So they're always kind of around the line. They had their 2 years in 2A. What's interesting, I think, with this 1A district is that it's a 14th district. So they got to find 7 non-district games, which when you're Ouachita Christian, that's kind of tough.
yeah.
Because admittedly, if you look at last year's non-district schedule, it wasn't that great, and they only had to fill 3. So it'll be interesting to see kind of who and like where they go. I think the only thing they have so far is they're playing Bunkie in week 6, which I mean that's a pretty good game there. But it's just, I mean, St. Frederick's probably going to be the only team to give them any kind of run in that district, and I feel like that's been the story forever. And St. Frederick just never really does.
Yeah. So continuing on that, Bolton Academy, 3A to 1A, huge just jump off there for
Yeah, I mean,
Bolton.
if you looked at some of their games last year, they had like 15 people on the sidelines.
Yeah, they
So they
were.
might still struggle through 1A, but they're playing their district schedule this time.
This is really, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but this is really why we need 6-man or something like that in Louisiana. I think
They
it's for teams like this. I think it would benefit them spend a few years in that and then try to get back to that level. But we just don't have
it
that.
would depend on where you set the number. 175 to me, I don't know if I would make 175 that high of a number eligible for 6-man, but
I think it obviously has to be lower, but they're
for
not
reference, Texas it's 105, but also
okay.
obviously they have like 1,400
Yeah,
schools.
they have
So,
a lot more. So I think ours would definitely be higher for Louisiana, but
but I think the point of it would be more obviously someone like that, but also I think for me it's more the schools that are like Lacassine, Bell City, those kind of schools that are kind of, especially in Southwest Louisiana, there's a lot of schools there that are kind of higher tier in terms of their numbers, like Class B schools that could totally play, like field a 6-man team, no problem. The reason they just don't play football is because they don't have the interest at the schools. But if you can get a
which
6-man, and also if you get a 6-man, you might be able to get some of those the Louisiana schools that play in Mississippi back in. You might get it like there's like Briarfield is in they're in East Carroll, I believe. You got Riverdale Academy in Coushatta. Like
I
you
mean,
got
this is
some
a
of
thing
them you
that's
might be able
been
to pull back in.
I mean, this is the thing that's been brought up on the table to the LHSA a few times.
I don't know if it's ever been brought up to the LHSAA, but it's definitely been like in high
It's
school
been in
football circles in
talks.
Louisiana. It has
I
been
think it was
discussed.
brought up to them a few times at one point. I can't recall exactly. I read a few things, but it was very informal. It wasn't like formally brought up. It was just like talks within the LHSA that never really went anywhere. Because you could see there's also there at the same time, I mean, what don't get rid of what works. Don't change what works at the same time. So it's really because you have to, like I said, you have to consider size. Texas is big; they can do it. Here, it's like we're smaller, but I think it would be beneficial, like you said. It would bring a lot more back to Louisiana.
Because look at Crescent City, right? If they could have done a 6-man schedule, they'd be good. South Cameron tried to do it the first couple years back, and it just they were doing. I think it might have been 8-man they were doing, but they were trying. But
Well,
there was
honestly,
no one
eight
in
man would
Louisiana
have
to
been
play.
more. 8-man probably would be more beneficial than 6-man, if anything. Maybe, I mean, having
I
both,
think
obviously,
it
but
will be a thing. You'd only pick one because even Texas can't do both. They
yeah.
tried. It's one of those where I
Like
think
in an
you'd look.
ideal world, it would be both, but
Yeah. You'd look at kind of because I think 8-man you have a couple more like there's a couple guys that aren't eligible. 6-man everyone on the field is an eligible receiver and everything. 8-man, I think you do actually have a couple linemen that are ineligible, but I haven't dug that deep into the differences between 8 and 6-man outside of just what I've kind of read casually. So I think it's one of those where maybe it's a thing you look at and kind of figure out which of these you think would be more beneficial. But because I do think having one of them would actually be pretty beneficial for
Not
both
only
schools.
beneficial, it'd just be plain out entertaining just to see. If you ever watch, like you and I watched all those Texas
Yeah.
8-man,
The 6-man in Texas, it's
6-man,
very
sorry,
fun.
6-man games. Those are they're fun. They're
They
cool to
they
watch.
are rapid paced. They score fast.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're usually they're high scoring games too. Almost all of them for the most part. But
Which I think that may also draw some criticism too of like, oh, no one plays defense, but also like,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to play defense when you've got like 20 guys on your
but they
roster.
had some, considering it's Texas, big high school football state, obviously, they had a great turnout for those games, and I think they could produce the same turnout here for some of those smaller
Or like
schools.
a proportionally similar turnout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
proportionally, yeah, 100%. So let's continue on with schools moving down to 1A. Capital 2A to 1A, no surprises there. East Feliciana, no surprises there, 2A to 1A. South Plaquemines, a little surprising, 2A to 1A, but I think that's geography. I think that's where it's located. I think that's when we were there earlier in the season, they were telling us, hey, we got a lot of these people. They built new plants down there, and they got a lot, chemical plants and all that with shipping and everything. They got a lot of, workers they brought in from different parts of the country with their kids and everything. But the people in the press box are telling us, they're saying, we didn't get as many of those kids as we thought we were. They didn't end up going here. A lot of them just, did not go to South Plaquemines despite being relocated into the area. Being said, that hurts South Plaquemines a lot, and I think that's part of why they've had to go down. They lost that size.
I have a bit of a gripe with this district because it has Ascension Catholic and Ascension Christian in it.
Yeah,
that is a long.
That's a long drive. I mean, for
it's
us,
already bad.
for
if
us
you're
coming
like
from
Newman or Country Day, that's already rough. You have to go all the way to Donaldsonville from from Port Sulphur.
I mean, for us coming from where I think we started our journey.
We started in Metairie.
Yeah, we started from Metairie down there. To Buras felt like forever. I mean, it was a fun drive. It felt like forever. I can't imagine going from Ascension Parish. I mean, oh my God, that's nuts.
But I guess when you consider that, like, so before that district had Varnado in it,
mm-hmm.
Which, to be fair, is that any better? Because
because
Varnado is like in the corner up there, and you got to come all the way down to South Plaque. It's like, I guess you got. I mean, I don't really know what else you could have done because the only other football schools that are down there, you got Riverside, St. Martin's, and West St. John.
You don't have many choices, so
I guess it's kind of.
At least for now, I think it's fine. I think in the future, it's not sustainable.
I don't know how sustainable that can be in the long run, but I mean, you can do it for football. For football, it's one thing to do it. Which that's one of those times where I actually think if we could have multiple, like each sport might have slightly different districts, that would be pretty nice. Because you can do a 2-hour drive in football for a district game. But to do that in like basketball on, say, a Tuesday night?
Yeah, that's just not going to work.
And in basketball, you have other schools there you can work with. Like you have Crescent City, you have Ecole Classique, you have McGee for girls basketball and like those other sports. You have that.
You have options, yeah.
You can do that, and like Ascension Catholic and Christian can go in there and play Capital, East Iberville, North Iberville, Southern Lab, that district. But
and being said, as far as South Plaquemines, they had 2 amazing seasons, obviously. And unfortunate the way it ended last year within the playoffs, but amazing. Like we've said this all season after we went there, we really enjoyed going there. Amazing atmosphere and everything. I'm sure, even though they're obviously they dropped off in enrollment. They're returning a lot of those people. I believe
They
the
always kind of
quarterback was a
had,
senior, so it's going to be a
yeah,
new quarterback for them is
yeah.
going to be
They
interesting.
they had always had, even they were in 2A 2 years ago, even the last 2 years, but they still had kind of a 1A size roster. Like if you go back and look at the rosters in 2024, their state championship year, Haynesville as a 1A school had more players.
Yeah, but I don't think
So
talent
honestly,
will be. I don't think talent will be an issue for South Plaquemines. I don't think
I think
coaching is an
that,
issue.
yeah,
I think they have a
their
depth is
depth,
going to be an issue. Depth.
but I think now coming back down to 1A, their depth kind of can meet that a little better.
It
Like
kind of
they're,
even. It kind of evens out in a way.
and as we looked at it, they're playing in Donaldsonville in week 9. So that's a
Which,
long trip.
yeah,
They're hosting Bell Chase in their rivalry.
we hope to get to that Bell Chase game
Yeah,
this year.
Bell
That's
Chase
the.
kind of just dominates
It
that
depends on
rivalry,
what
just more on
happens.
size.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Bell Chase had a good year
But they
last
work
year, and
with
I was
Bell
like,
Chase in many aspects. They work with them. I mean, they're as much as they're a rivalry. Those schools are very close with each other, extremely close. They're informal,
yeah.
almost brothers as far as schools goes.
I mean, those are those two. They're the two schools pretty much in the parish outside of Phoenix, and Phoenix is on the other side of the river.
I mean,
So
I think if I'm not mistaken, they share a lot of fundraising things like that. They obviously they have to, but I think between themselves they make up a large portion. Now let's get to a new program, False River. What can you tell me about the False River, or just everyone in general?
so kind of the older people will know what False River is. But so False River, they're in New Roads, Segregation
Mhm.
Academy. They played football for a while. Numbers kind of dropped off. They stopped in 2017. They were never really that great. And honestly, I don't know why they're restarting.
I mean, they're a private school, if I'm not
Yeah, private
mistaken,
school in New Roads.
pre-K
Basically,
through 12.
if you're in New Roads, your options are basically Catholic Point Coupee or False River if you want to stay in New Roads, or you go to Livonia for public
Yeah, I mean, it's very diverse student body. They offer dual enrollment and they draw a lot of students from Point Coupé, if anything. Coupé. So,
I mean, yeah, New Roads is in Point Coupee, so it's kind of it's an odd decision. They're the second, I believe they're the second smallest football playing school now. Or yeah, they're gonna be because Berkman's is the only one that's gonna be smaller than them. They have 96
I believe the
enrollment.
last time they played was 2018, right? Right?
2017, their last game was a
Okay.
34-26 win against North Central. For reference, their second to last game was a game at Catholic Point Coupee when David Semino was the head coach, the current Central head coach.
And it's weird because they still played JV for
Or a
through
few years after they played a JV, they had a JV program, yeah.
yeah, they played like in 20.
But
I'm
they
looking at their
dropped that.
2019 JV schedule, and their 2019 JV schedule, they played Crescent City, Westminster, Ascension Catholic. Obviously JV, it's weird how these work. It's just, fine people, but still,
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
because
it's almost a preview a little bit.
they dropped down. I believe they were in class C last year, last
Hmm.
reclass. So it's definitely an interesting decision to bring the program back. Um, I don't even know if like logistically they're going straight in as like competing for district, if they're doing a non-district schedule or what. I just think it's kind of an odd.
I think it's more of probably some of the parents probably want it. But we're saying, hey, we want a football team because I want a lot of them being
I
on.
guess it's
It's a
because
little bit more
maybe
of the
you don't
it's a
want to
little bit
send
more
them
of the
to
country
Catholic Point
almost, and
Coupee.
you want competition, and I think that's the culture up there in that area is
Well, I think the big issue with
sports.
them
Sports is a
is
big part of that culture.
honestly, I don't know if New Roads can really like So Catholic Point Coupee is there too in New Road. So
Yeah.
it's a matter of, and their stadiums are like 5 minutes from each other. Because I mean, so Falls River still has the infrastructure there. They have the stadium is still behind the school, but it's just I'm not gonna say that people shouldn't be able to play football. I'm not gonna like I don't understand the decision, but I'm not gonna really
You
bash the
want
decision.
100%. So we'll see how the Gators do this season, and obviously, good luck to them. We'll keep everyone updated on that. I'm sure everyone's interested in seeing how a new team does restarting. I mean, we saw North Iberville did only restarting 2-3 years ago, and
Yeah, that's a little bit of a different situation though, because North
yeah.
Naperville actually closed. But I mean, we'll see. It's a
I mean,
decent. It's got a good kind of it's there's a good mix. They won a couple they won a state championship in the Louisiana Independent School Association.
yeah.
Um, but that they never really transferred that success into the LHSAA.
Which
It
we'll
just
see what.
never really came.
And, like I said, we'll see what happens with them just moving, just starting out again. So it's other kind of some honorable mentions. Morris Jeff, 3A, still staying in 3A, but
But
not
yeah,
for honors.
so Morris Jeff last 2 years played a JV schedule. This year they are playing a full varsity schedule, but they're not competing for any kind of district honors. The Pelicans, I don't have a schedule for them yet, but they it's a new school. I mean, their coach has been around. Bill Conadays. Was at Denham Springs at one point. He kind of he knows what he's doing. The schedule is it'll be interesting to see what their schedule comes out. But I mean, this is a guy. He was the head coach at Denham Springs for 3 years, so he's not just some nobody they've hired. I mean, he did okay at Denham Springs. He got fired after a 1-9 season in 2019, but before that, he had 2 winning seasons. So it'll just be interesting to see kind of that progression for them because even their JV, they were as a JV team, they were like they had a couple wins and a couple losses. They were okay. They played the three varsity teams they played kind of beat them by a lot. So it'll just be interesting to see kind of how that works. But then like they beat the Riverdale JV 42-0, kind of Discovery JV 32-8. They tied with Willow's JV, so it's kind of just we'll see how that goes. Obviously, I hope they do well. But it's a little bit of a still we'll have to just kind of wait and see.
Yeah, and as far as staying in same district, sorry, classifications, right? JS Clark leadership will be staying in 1A. No
That's
surprises
another one of
there.
those JV, but they're actually going straight into for their district honors.
Yeah.
They dominated really their JV schedule. I mean, they played one varsity team, but it was Thrive Academy. They beat them 49-0. But then they beat the Mentorship JV. They beat the Lafayette Christian JV 52-20. So these guys might actually be someone you want to watch. You have to watch out for. They beat the Northside JV 28-6. They beat Acadian Renaissance, who you could argue weren't a JV team, but technically they were playing a JV only schedule. They were 50-30. They beat them. I mean, they went. I believe that's 8-0. Now in this district, I mean, it's going to be tough. You got Westminster bringing back a lot. You got St. Edmund is always in there. Opelousas Catholic. All for me, J.S. Clark is doing here is it's keeping that district to me as probably the most interesting district, at least in 1A, but almost in the state, I would think too.
I 100% agree. Now, moving forward, let's get to our second topic of the day. Losing streaks and just not playing for district honors in general. These teams tough year last year at least, for the most part. These
Tough
teams are going to
few
go through.
for most of these.
But let's start with plain dealing, of course.
So
Everybody knows
yeah,
longest losing streak. They have the longest losing streak in the state, 44 consecutive losses, the 10th longest in the country, and their last win was in 2021. So plain dealing, this is a big season for them. They want a win. They want one win. They would
and
be
you know what?
satisfied with one
They
win.
have, and I'll say this with their schedule, they have set themselves up to do it. Because they play Bolton, who has the second longest streak in the state. They play Lakeview, who has the third longest streak in the state. They play Magnolia School of Excellence, who has the fourth longest streak in the state. And they play Pine Prairie, who is one of the teams with that fifth longest.
And you can't really be
17.
upset at them for this at all. It's very understandable.
No.
I mean, at some point, it's like, okay, let's not playing for PowerPoint so much, but just playing to have a good season and try to boost the look of your team and everything. That way, you can do better as far as getting players, etc. in the
Because when you
future.
actually look at it too, so it's a pretty small school, but the last like decade, when you look at like players on the football team per like capita in the school, plain dealing is always like usually at the top. They're
And plain
usually
dealings in 1A, just a note.
yeah.
They're still small, but they're still.
They are one of the smallest football playing schools. They have 98 students.
Mhm.
But even their other games on their schedule is Lakeside, Rose Pine, or North Caddo, and Northwood. Like they're still playing teams that even if they don't have really long losing streaks, go they're not going out and playing really tough teams. And I think for them, that's kind of beneficial. I think it maybe hurts that district a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that district wasn't really going to be competitive. Honestly, Haynesville, from their perspective, probably helps because Haynesville last couple years really hasn't been able to test themselves that much, just because they've had that 18 district, so you've only got 3 games you can schedule. And when you got Homer's got to be in there as a rivalry, you got North Webster's got to be in there as a rivalry. You really only got the one added space. So now with like a 14 district for them, they have a lot more room to schedule who they want.
Yeah. And moving on from plain dealing, good luck to them this season. Would be, like I said, would be great to see them get a win. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Like I said, our big highlight of this, thing we've created is to go and live stream smaller programs. So if plain dealing can get a little win streak going, we may end up out there, which would just be, they would be shocked to have anybody out there. And we would love,
That's
programs.
a long trip.
Oh, it's a long trip, but it's in the cards somewhere. It's in the back of the card stack, but it's there. So let's move on here to Pine Prairie in 3A. They're tied for the 5th longest streak in the state. 17 consecutive losses, and has only one in the last 40 games. One win in the last 40 games.
Yeah, and I mean they've set themselves up pretty good as well. So they obviously are also they're playing plain dealing as we already mentioned. They're also playing Bolton, and even they're playing Block in there, who went 0-10 last year. But even the other teams on that schedule, you've got Ringgold, Pickering, Gaydall, Delhi. Like they're also giving themselves that opportunity.
Yeah, and there's not much to really highlight there except what we
For
said. We basically just saying the same thing as we said with plain dealing. They made a manageable schedule this year. They'd be happy for a win.
yeah, I actually there's a so their coach has basically just said that like they're just trying to start kind of fresh here, get kind of something back into the program, and then work into coming back and playing for any kind of district
Yeah, and
honors and stuff.
almost get yourself oriented and standing up straight before you begin walking is the best analogy I can think of. And 100% doing both programs are doing the right thing. Let's move on to Bolton Academy now. They have the 2nd longest losing streak in the state. Their schedule, I mean,
Not really out that much.
it's not really, they're not looking to rebuild.
They're I mean okay, so they're playing at LaSalle. So they have a district schedule. They're playing their district, which is Block, Delta Charter, LaSalle, Northwood, Lena. So I mean, to be fair, that's not the most challenging district.
It's not
also,
insane, but it's not really easy at the same time. They're taking the medium route, I would put
yeah.
it that way.
But even when
Medium
you look into their
difficulty.
non-district schedule, it's Plain Dealing, it's Pine Prairie, Pickering. So there's still obviously some thought process in there to like, let's give ourselves a game we think we can win, or at least like we think we can be close to winning. That's just tough when you only have like 15 players.
Now let's look Lakeview, third longest losing streak in the state. As far as Lakeview, I would say they're kind of in the same grouping as Bowling
Honestly,
Academy.
Lakeview, I think, kind of seems to be a little more not caring. So their district is obviously Jonesboro, Hodge, Logansport, Montgomery, and Ringgold and St. Mary's.
Yeah.
They're playing LaSalle, Plain Dealing, and North Webster is kind of what we have so far, their schedule. So it's like there's something in there of like, okay, you're playing Plain Dealing as like kind of your try to win, but like LaSalle and North Webster, you don't really have much of a shot there. So I think they're kind of in the we're not
I mean,
really trying
Natchez
here.
Parish and I think it's a weird how it's set up just as far as districting and everything up there and where these teams are placed in. But I mean, as far Lakeview has it's very unfortunate that they have this losing streak going on because they have a beautiful stadium. They 1,400 capacity. They have all these sports. They just they have a great following, and for them to
It's
be
just
good would be huge at some point.
they seem to focus more on their other sports. Like, I
Which they're
mean,
good. They're decent in their other sports for the most part.
yeah, like they have a pretty nice baseball field. I mean, that to have that's a really nice turf field they have at the football field too.
Yes, it looks brand new. It basically is. I think this stadium. I can check which year it was opened. It was.
Or it's probably been the stadium for a while, but it's a really nice stadium and facility. It's just you got. I mean, this is like you gotta actually use it though. Like, what's the point of having this nice stadium
If
you're
you're not
not?
bringing in that, if you're frankly, if you're crap and you're not bringing in money from football, should be your biggest thing to get money from people coming to these games, etc., concessions, all that. You're not selling it. Yeah, there'll always be parents, but there'll always be students showing up. But it's not going to be to the level of if you had a great team. You just keep losing. So we'll see what happens there. Unfortunate situation, really. Magnolia School of Excellence. We know a lot about them. Fourth longest losing streak in the state. Not much to be said there, really.
Yeah, they're playing their district schedule.
Yeah, they don't really care as well. They're just gonna see what happens. I don't have high hopes for them at
Especially when
all.
you consider that district is Calvary, Green Oaks, Homer, and North Caddo. I mean, they are playing Beekman and Plain Dealing, so again, there's a little bit of a shot there. There is a trend that I am liking though in on both ends of the schedule. Though the really high level teams are all playing each other now the last few years,
Yeah,
but also these teams on the ends of these losing streaks, they're all playing each other. So I really like
which
that too. Of like they're all like I think even both sides when these
they're
are
all
coming to these
giving themselves a shot, and they're
yeah.
kind of helping each other in a way, if anything. But let's continue on here. Morris Jeff. This is their first year of varsity competition, 3A.
Yeah, I don't even really know what their schedule is.
Um,
They don't really seem to have much of a schedule.
but kudos to them for making the decision. If that's all I can really say about them, I don't think they're going to be
Yeah.
good, but
Oh well,
they'll
not that it
exist.
really matters where you are in New Orleans anymore for where you go to school, but
Yeah.
this is a school that's in Musicians Village. They're out there and kind of around the Bywater, around the Desire area. So they're almost in the ninth ward. It wouldn't surprise me if they're getting maybe some of the people who are going to be football players from Martin Luther King that closed a few years ago, if they're getting them in. Because pretty much if you're in the ninth ward, you want to go kind of close. It's basically them or Douglas.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, though, you can kind of go from anywhere. From what I've heard as well, Morris Jeff is actually usually one of the highest academically as well in the high schools.
Oh,
So I think
100%.
there's a bit of that too.
It helps them, but like it's almost the same story as Haynes in a sense. They're not, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
The
they
athletics is going to
they
suffer with
don't.
academic.
I mean, they call themselves a community school. I don't know. I haven't looked into
How
how
much? I
much
don't know how much of
exactly
that is really.
they actually. I'm not gonna dismiss that, but it's a matter of they seem to.
I
From
know
what I
exactly
have
what you mean.
heard,
I know
they are
exactly what you
actually,
mean.
though, from what I have heard, they are one of, um, when we're talking strictly not magnet schools in New Orleans that are public schools, they're usually one of the best academically and just all around. From what I've heard, they're usually one of the best.
Now, continuing on from that, Ben Franklin. Now they're in customary status. Would you care to explain to the audience what that means exactly?
They're playing a non-district schedule, but it's just that's their custom.
Yeah.
They're
I mean,
playing their
there's not
non-district
much to be
schedule.
said. They're just doing what they
They're
do. But
yeah,
you could tell by the way we went through all those schools. That's the end of that list or that segment. But you could tell by the way we went through all of them. Plain dealing has set themselves up for the most success with Pine Prairie, and just going down the list. Just getting set up for the most success at the top, and then at the bottom, just kind of they're doing what they do, and we'll see what happens there, but no high hopes for the bottom half of that list as far as getting a few wins on the schedule. Now, notable 2026-2027 football schedules. This will be part 3 of this preview and our final part of it. Schedules we love, essentially. So we're going to start here with Evangel. Now, Evangel, their schedule includes West Monroe, Neville, and Cornerstone Christian, which is a school in San Antonio, Texas. All these schools are very good, obviously. All had good seasons last year. But Evangel, they love to challenge themselves. And with their talent level, they should be challenging themselves. That's the reason we love that schedule. I think you would agree, Matthew.
yeah. I think I love that because obviously that district is very kind of all over the place, honestly.
Yeah.
So to have that West Monroe and Neville like back to back, you actually kind of know what you have, and then in the middle of that, they have
Well, West Monroe,
Cornerstone.
I think it's like nobody really knows how they're going to do this year. I don't know how much they're returning exactly, but last year is almost, it was a surprise almost in a sense. I hate to say it, but this is the fans. I love West Monroe. I think it's a great program, but they wanted to fire the coach after that. And they fire after the run they had, amazing season they had last year, which they weren't really supposed to do that good. And then at least by their standards, they wanted to fire the coach. They were on the message boards. They were on
I'd
Sportsline.
say they're
Everybody thought
kind
it
of it's.
was nuts.
I'd say it's similar to the Ryan Day kind of situation at Ohio State, where like the administration really has no plans to do it, but the fans are kind of calling for it and stuff. But I don't
But
think that was
I
ever
just
really
don't
going
think
to
it makes
happen.
sense. It just does not make sense. And they fired the coach after what was it, a few years ago? They fired the head coach. I don't remember his
Well,
name exactly. And
I don't remember. I believe he stepped down, but there's talks like it was actually basically
he
we're
was
gonna
basically
fire
fired.
you or
You leave,
but yeah,
basically.
Kevin Davis. He came
Didn't he
in.
lead them to like the third round or the
Well,
semifinals?
so his first season there was the whole Todd Garvin situation. He only
Yeah.
coached 2 games that year, and then Kevin Davis kind of righted the ship. They went through that district. They only lost to Ruston, but then they got upset by North Shore in the first round.
Yeah.
And then 24, they had a kind of rough regular season, going 5-5, but then they made a quarterfinal run and they lost to Central, who went on to win the whole thing.
And then they fired him. Essentially, they fired him, as far as I'm concerned.
But I mean, it started well, and if you actually go back and really look at who the losses are to, the Barb loss is bad. That's bad
Yeah,
for DeMichael. Yeah. But when you actually look at it, it's like, okay, they lost to Neville by 3 and Ruston by 5.
understandable. In both of those games, I'm pretty sure we're at Ruston and at Neville, from what
It
I
was
remember.
Neville was at home,
Okay,
but
Neville was at
they
home.
also lost to North DeSoto at home. But in the end, that a lot of people were already kind of had them on their radar for being good, but that really propelled a lot of people to like, this is like a really good
Well,
state
people
championship.
had them on the like I said, by their standards,
By West Monroe
they weren't
standards, they
supposed to
probably
be that
shouldn't.
great. By their standards, they weren't supposed to be that great last year. By regular viewers, etc., people in the state, North Louisiana, they thought, yeah, they could be good, and that's why they were on the radar of a few
To
people.
bring more college football metaphors in, it's Alabama and DeBoer.
Yeah, like yeah,
It's
they
gonna take some time because so you gotta. It's especially replacing Don Shows, who had an amazing run with West Monroe. They were nothing before him,
mhm.
and he had his 20-year run where they were pretty much unstoppable. They only lost 47 games at West Monroe for like 15 years. And then Arledge only won the one state championship, but they were always pretty good. And then it did tail off a little bit, but they were still very good. Like we're still talking about here a program that hasn't had a losing record basically since before Don Shows got there in the 90s. So I think it's more just this is a fan base that's not used to being. It's like Alabama. This is a fan base that the expectation is you're in the national championship. When the reality is you have to actually look and realize they're not there yet.
100%. I agree. It's a process. To quote the 76ers, trust the process. Now, let's
The
move on
process
here.
didn't work there, but the same man, the same GM, it worked in OKC.
True. Yeah, situations happen. So let's move on here. Alexandria. This includes Bryant, Arkansas, which is a two-time defending 7A state championships. They're number 57 nationally. So very tough competition there. But Alexandria,
Yeah.
they need to
I mean,
schedule tough
that's
competition. It's Alexandria.
Bryant, yeah.
And
Also
then they also scheduled
27
Union
consecutive regular
Parish.
season wins.
And then they also scheduled Union Parish and Lafayette Christian. Yeah, they picked tough schedule. Very tough schedule this year. But that's what they need to do. You're
But
Alexandria.
that's
It
what
was
Baton's
rough last
always
year with
done.
that loss. That loss to West Monroe, and I believe Alexandria lost to Ruston as well. Or did they beat Ruston?
They lost to West Monroe and Neville. They beat Ruston by
Okay.
17.
Yeah, yep, that's right. I remember that. So that was
They
a
are
weird
coming
game with
off of,
the penalties, if I
yeah.
don't remember. If I remember correctly.
Their schedule for 2025 didn't age as well as it would have. And 2024 was good because you had Opelousas who were defending state
Mhm.
champs. Manny, when that game was scheduled, still had Jess Curtis. Union Parish was just coming off of a state championship. West Feliciana was doing very well. It didn't quite age as well in 2025. They kind of blew everyone out except for Destrehan, and they still beat Destrehan. But it's still that is a great schedule for them. They probably should still roll over Union Parish, but I think for me that's more of complimenting Union Parish for that for even scheduling that game as a 2A school to have the bravery to say we're going to go play Ash. We're going to play Alexandria, this 5A school, because Joe Spatafora, he doesn't schedule for PowerPoints. He doesn't schedule to win. He schedules for November. And
Oh, 100%.
it proved again with a semifinal run.
Yeah, it's he
And we're going to talk about
the
their
right
schedule later
decisions are being
because
made.
that's insane too.
The right decisions are being made.
And even
Now,
then, 2-5A is still going to be a really tough district too. Not as tough as it's been before, just because you're replacing Neville with Peabody, but you've still got the defending state champs, Ouachita. You've got the defending state runner-up, Ruston, and West Monroe is always still going to be good. So you're always going to have this challenge in the district. So it's like you could, if you're Thomas Backman, you could also get away with, we're not actually going to really play anybody in the pre-district. We're kind of just going to play, get some wins, figure out kind of where we are. But no, they're going to play those tough games and then go on and play in that district as well.
Now, being said, let's move on to Southside, who had a great season last year. Absolutely great season. They looked really good. Now we'll see what they can do this year, but I'm as far as I remember, they're returning a decent amount of talent. Being said, they scheduled a Catholic League team. They scheduled Brother Martin, and they also just scheduled
Easton
Union Paris,
Royal.
but
Easton
they
Royal's
scheduled
coming
Brother
in.
Martin. And to be honest with you, I think Brother Martin will be good this year, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to be great, but I think they'll be good. Being said,
this is one of those games where I think we will learn a lot about both teams from this.
Yes, 100. I was just about to say that 100%. And
because
Southside has the chance to win this game 100%, in my opinion.
I think this is one of those games
based off of last season. Based off of last season alone. Now, we don't know how they're going to be this year, obviously. You can only guess. But based off of last season, Southside, I think, could potentially,
Jess Curtis knows what he's doing, and they run that offense.
Brother Martin. Oh, yeah, 100%. And he's familiar. He's familiar with the Catholic League, obviously.
He's not, actually. I think this is the first time he's played a Catholic League team. He has no relation. Sure? He has no.
I know he has no relation to the Curtises, but I'm saying
the Curtis is John Curtis.
No, but I'm pretty sure. Did he not coach against
Manny?
I swore he coached against the Catholic League in some position, not a head coach, but
maybe I'm not as familiar with where he was before.
I think he was. He was a coordinator somewhere. And he was against somewhere related to the Catholic League. If
this
was what I'm referencing.
Even from the Brother Martin perspective, right? That's a tough week one to have to go out and you're going to play that kind of option offense like that, that split, that veer like that. But also, if you think about Brother Martin, that's like, okay, so that way when we play Curtis, that's not going to be the first time this year we've seen it. And that's 100%. A big thing for them too. And even Southside Union Parish,
for preparing in general.
Yeah. Southside Union Parish, that game might be done in 2 hours. Now, there might be 10 passes in that game. I think that's another one of those where I don't know how much Southside's actually going to learn about themselves. But again, Joe Spadafora is not scared at all.
No.
You're a declining enrollment to a school. And you have 5A, at least 2. There might even be, I think it's those are the only 2, but 2 5A schools on your schedule. And it's not like you're playing in 2 bad 5A schools. You're playing in Alexandria and Southside.
Yeah, it's not an easy schedule by any imaginable measure. Now, let's move on here to St. Thomas More. They always schedule a lot of tough opponents. They always schedule a lot of Catholic League. They scheduled Turling's Catholic. They're maintaining the rivalry. Very important there. Jesuit, a little bit. It's interesting, but
Manali has that tendency. He always likes that one game a year where there's a bit of a travel element to it. Especially now that we have a bigger playoffs.
Just to get the team prepared for the playoffs. Yeah, usually
especially
that first
now that we
round.
have the bigger length, more teams in the playoffs, you might have to travel more. So I kind of like that decision, actually.
And St. Thomas More scheduled Catholic BR. No surprise there.
That actually is a little bit of a burgeoning rivalry now, because I think we're looking at that's 5 or 6 years in a row.
Yep.
That's
been a fun game. That has been a routinely fun game for both teams. They've had their up and downs in it, and usually I would say it's
Catholic usually comes out on top. The last 2 years Catholics won.
Yeah.
But it's not like Catholic won by a lot. They won by a touchdown last year. They won by 4 2
Routinely
years
close
ago.
game.
It's routinely a great game. I mean, STM, so yeah, they played every year since 2022, and even before, I think they have a bit of a tradition too. But they played each other now. This will be the 5th and 6th years in a row. St. Thomas More has only won one of them, but you have to credit them for continually scheduling that game anyway.
100%.
Yeah, they didn't play in 2021, but they were still playing back. So I mean, they didn't play in 2021. Probably Ida had something to do with that, but they have been playing, except for 2021. They played every year since 2015, and even then, STM's only won once.
And being
But I mean,
said,
that's Jim Hightower. He's kind of the old school guy where they're going to do that.
what's being said about Catholic BR? Catholic BR is next up on this list. They scheduled Carrollton, Georgia. That's the Georgia, if you're not familiar. They're 6A state runner-up, and they're number 5 nationally. Like, that is a challenge.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know who.
they
I
got
don't
him
know
in
when
Baton
this was
Rouge.
arranged. This may have been arranged a few years ago when Catholic was at the top. They may have said, "Oh, we want to play all one year." They said, "Oh, well, we don't have the space on our schedule." But by this time, and they probably reached out, and Catholic was like, "Well, a deal's a deal." So I don't know what really goes into this because I think Catholic's going to get curb stomped. I think this
Usually,
is
there's a connection here somewhere. Maybe someone on the Carrollton coaching staff is from Baton Rouge or something. But I mean, Carrollton's got 29 consecutive regular season wins. They've
I
come up
just
short. They've come up short by a few points in the 6A state championship the last 2 years in a row, but just getting there because that 6A in Georgia is routinely one of the toughest brackets in the country. So even just 2 years in a row to get there, get to that state championship in Atlanta is pretty tough. There's a reason, even with losing that game, they finished number 5 in the country.
100%. And now, being said, we already said about St. Thomas More, but Catholic BR Ruston. I mean, that was
Don't forget
that
about
was
Dunham.
good.
That's when you're easy when that's probably their easiest team on the schedule, and it's Dunham. When
Which
the easiest team on your schedule is a
when the
defending
easiest team
state
on
champ.
schedule is, yeah, it's like, whoa, you scheduled hard. They're gonna get power points this year. They're getting a lot of them. They usually do this. They're known for having a tough schedule for the most part. Last year, but for the most part, they're known for having a tough schedule.
I mean, last year they still
Catholic
played
BR.
West Monroe. I mean, they still went and played West
Oh yeah,
Monroe, and
but
Madison Ridgeland's always pretty good. They beat them last year.
not
I mean,
quite the
okay,
level.
they
Not
still
quite the
play.
level of this year and what they're
Yeah,
what.
I mean, to play Destrehan, St. Thomas More, University Lab, West Monroe, and Madison Ridgeland, that's a great schedule. But this year, to have that schedule, you know what? That tells me that Hudson Fuller is very confident in the team he has. Because there is no game in here where it's like, okay, let's kind of figure out what we are. This is, I mean, you're going into it, you're playing the number 5 team in the country. They might, I mean, we'll see when they get preseason ranked, which again, I don't put too much stock into it, but that helps at least kind of build up the matchup.
And being said, big thing, the Legacy School of Sports Science,
Yeah,
Texas.
they
We saw
finished
them
the
a little
season.
bit. Yeah, they entered the
They've
Louisiana.
played,
They
they
entered
played
the Louisiana Spear last
about 2
few.
years ago. They played Brother Martin and
Yeah,
Og, and then last year they played Og and
the last few years they've been
St. Charles Catholic.
they've been trying to look for Louisiana teams to play. They seem to like it. The Louisiana teams are always open to it.
I think part of it too is they're not in a any
Well, look at
kind
their
of association
and just
in Texas, so they kind of have to create their own
location.
schedule.
Look at their
Yeah,
location.
they're in Houston.
They're right there.
The big thing is they just don't have their own kind of association. They finished 6-4 last year, with losses St. Aug and St. Charles Catholic. They have another loss to a team that made a run in Texas 3A. I think they were semi-quarterfinalist. And then the other loss was to a team who was a state semifinalist in 5A. So it's still They schedule pretty tough, virtually just kind of because they have to, but it's still a pretty good team there.
Now let's move on here to our last four teams of this segment. Archbishop Shaw, Hahnville, West Jefferson, Rummel, Edie White, McDonough 35, and Calvary Baptist. That's a schedule, especially Shaw was good last year. They've been good the past couple of years. I'm surprised they're not playing up.
So
I
they're
don't,
not doing it till 2030. But I
which
think
is to
so.
me, I think is insane. I think they're ready to play up. I think
They don't want to play
I thought
up.
this was going to be maybe 2 to 3 years at max, and then they'll be right back up to the level they're
The
supposed to
main
be.
thing they're doing right now is they're trying to just rebuild the enrollment at the school in general, which they've done. It's a good, like they jumped about 150, which I guess 150 the numbers is only about 75 boys, but that's a big jump there for them. That they're projecting another one. From what I've heard, they actually don't want to play up until their numbers actually are 5A, in which case they wouldn't play up, they'd just be in it.
Yeah.
Generally, I think for me, this is on the lower end of the schedules we're talking about, but still, that's
Still competitive, and they're still always scheduling Rummel, which I think
yeah,
Rummel will be
Hahnville,
good this year.
yeah, Hahnville is always a pretty decent team. They had a good run last year. West Jeff, that's more just Hank Tierney's playing his former team. Rummel, that's a rivalry. You got Edie White. That's a rematch of state championship 2 years ago. Edie White was a semifinalist, I believe, last year.
Yep.
So, we've got this run. McDonough 35 is always. They're never a team that's going to be necessarily easy. I'd say with McDonough 35, it's always kind of more. You have to start right against them. Because a team that has athletes like that, if you kind of just start a little slow, they can kind of just outpace you immediately, and now you're a little shell shocked. And then let's not forget that after they play Belle Chase, well, they're trying to look for revenge there, which Belle Chase, that's going to be physical for them. The next week they play Calvary Baptist, which that's another one of I think I'm going to applaud Calvary Baptist more than I'm going to applaud Shaw. I'm still going to applaud Shaw for even scheduling that because that's still a really good team. I think Calvary Baptist. There's always a little bit more to applaud for the smaller school playing the bigger school than the bigger school playing the smaller school. But I think it's still a credit to because sometimes you get those big schools, they'll get this small school power call, and they're like, no, we're not playing you. But there's still the credit to actually say, okay, we'll do it. Because that district, it did get worse. But I mean, Belle Chase is probably going to be the only team that's going to give them any kind of run. Young audiences, maybe, but I just don't see young audiences
I don't see
being
that happening.
fully ready for that. Maybe in two, depending on how the trajectory goes, maybe
like
in
1 to 2 years, 3.
But next season, I don't think so. But the season after, maybe it'll depend on the trajectory of the program.
Now let's continue here. Move on to Union Parish. We already mentioned them a few times with Southside Alexandria, but they also scheduled North DeSoto and Calvary Baptist. Competitive schedule. You expect this out of Union Parish, but
Haynesville.
I mean that's
the Oak Grove as well. So with their non-district schedule, the two teams they're playing that weren't in the dome last year, or they're just a couple 5A schools in Alexandria and Southside.
Yeah. Union Parish didn't live up to what they were supposed to be last year. It just didn't happen.
They did. They were semifinalists.
I thought
at 5-5.
I didn't think they were ever going to make it to the semifinals. I'm saying regular season speaking. Let's throw the playoffs out. What the regular season was supposed to be did not live up.
I mean, they were 5-5. I think really
I think they should have been 7-3.
I think when you play North DeSoto Alexandria Airline, I think the kind of and Sterlington, I think the really only one you can be somewhat disappointed in them for is a 48-0 to Calvary Baptist. You think maybe they could have at least given them more of a challenge, but this is one of those where, honestly,
they're playing Calvary Baptist again this year.
Union Parish could lose all 6 of these games.
Oh yeah,
be 4-6. They'll probably be in the playoffs pretty easily. I would not want them.
No,
As a
because they're
even though they're
tested.
4-6,
They're tested. We said this all year. Even though they didn't live up to expectations in my mind, they were tested. And because they were tested, they ended up doing well in the
because I
playoffs.
think you
It's
can
what
make an
happens.
argument. They ran into Erath and Kinder, who were both undefeated, but you could make an argument just in general. Union Parish was a better team. They were
Mhm.
definitely the more tested team out of them, and in the end, with how those games went, being close one possession games, just their having played that before kind of helped. And then finally, they got to Gina, and I think it was a bit of just Gina was not as tested because that's kind of hard as a 2A school to be as tested as Union Parish was. But Gina still, test themselves decently. And I think they finally just ran into a team that probably was just better, like by far better, as opposed to Erath and Kinder. They were maybe even Union Parish was better. Maybe the other two were better.
But being
But it's just,
said,
I have to applaud Joe Spatafora for this schedule.
I agree. I
Because it's
agree
what
with
he's
you.
always
It's
done.
what he's always done this, and I think that's a lot of credit to continue to do something like that and just not,
Because for
not
him,
get phased by the pressure. Let's
yeah,
put it that way.
your regular season schedule for him is he doesn't care about winning it. He cares about, okay, we're going to test. So we're going to have seen these really good teams. So even if they're kind of down a bit, they don't have the Trey Holly years where they made the Dome 4 years in a row. And just they ran into some really good Manny and Sterlington teams. And then they finally got over that hump in 2023, but it's still like he schedules these games for November so that when you have the pressure of a quarterfinal or a semifinal game or something, it's like go back to game against insert 5A school here. These guys don't have that. You go and do it, and now it's this kind of you are not phased by any kind of pressure or anything because you've already faced that pressure in the regular season.
100%. That being said, let's move on here to Dunham. Dunham Parkway, Catholic BR, obviously, and Park Lane Academy in Mississippi, which is defending MAIS for a Division II state champion. So tough Mississippi school they scheduled there, but Parkway and Catholic BR. Catholic's no surprise, obviously. They always play them, and Parkway
They
shouldn't
don't.
really.
I have not played each other in a while,
Catholic and Dunham?
if ever. Yeah. Well, it's just
Are we sure?
when you consider the size difference between them. Dunham was a 1A school forever. Catholic's kind of always been a 5A school. I'm not going to
I
say
feel
they've
like they
never.
played in the past 5 years, which is why I said really no surprise. But I could be wrong completely.
All right.
Either way, this is going to be a packed game. I'm assuming this
Yeah,
is
it
at
is.
Catholic.
It's
This is
at
going to be
Memorial.
at
At
Memorial.
Memorial, yeah.
This may be like the most full we've seen Memorial in years, probably.
Yeah. This is the first meeting.
Yeah, this is going to be a full Memorial Stadium, and Dunham wants to make their own
You've got
stadium.
Elijah Haven, or Dunham has their stadium currently.
They have their own, but they want to
want a new
build.
one.
Because it's small. We went
It's
there
not on campus either.
as part of our stadium tour, which we never released the article on that. We will be releasing the article. Yeah, Matthew's like, what the hell? But we will be releasing
it's
that.
just we're a lot of things happening around that were
Yeah.
happening around then.
But as it's a small, it's on the smaller side. So they obviously want a new stadium, so they can pack these games a little better. But yeah, Dunham Catholic. That'll be a
There's
good
still some
game.
holes in their schedule, but like
Catholic's still
Elijah
gonna win
Haven,
that. I think Catholic's winning that still, at least
yeah.
by
This is one of
two
those.
touchdowns, just because of the size difference
But I
in
think
the
this is also
players.
going to help Elijah Haven get a lot of publicity because it's like a lot of it, people are at first going to be like, oh, yeah, but he's playing for a 2A school, so who's he playing? But then it's like, okay, he's going and he's playing these 5A schools. So, like, he's getting these publicity of like, y'all know all the stuff, like coaches he's already got. I mean, I don't know how much publicity he necessarily needs, but he's getting the publicity out that, like, he's not just some guy shredding lower tiers, a lower level. He's actually like there. I mean, he is the number 2 player in the country and the number 1 player in the state. Um, there is the unfortunate reality, at least for some of us. LSU doesn't really seem to be on the radar, but Evangels Peyton Houston seems to be there, so we'll see. Us, actually, his top 4 is Alabama, Auburn, Florida, and Georgia. So again, we'll see. Obviously, that'll develop as we get through especially the summer, but especially as we get into the season. I would assume he's probably going to sign an early signing day in December. So I think if Dunham makes a long enough run of the playoffs, we'll already know who he's committed to come the state championship or anything. But for me, I really like this schedule because obviously there's still some gaps in it. So it's like there's still weeks 3 and 4 kind of figuring stuff out. But your test yourself Parkway, like that's, I think, more of a test for your defense, honestly, because offensively, Elijah Haven will probably go off against Parkway. Catholic, that's another one of those. You're testing everybody at that point. Park Lane, I don't really know much about. I just did some quick research. They are, they're a defending state champ in Mississippi, and then the year before that, they won the state championship in a higher class in Mississippi. So that's definitely a good program. I just haven't looked further into just at the surface. This seems like a good program. I haven't looked further into anything else quite yet, but
Yeah, I really have nothing to really add to that. I mean, you summed it up perfectly. But moving on from Dunham, our last one here for this episode is Riverside Academy. They Kennedy, Ponchatoula, and St. Charles Catholic. I mean, nothing too crazy, but
as a 1A school, you're going and playing 4A Kennedy, 5A Ponchatoula. You're playing St. Charles Catholic.
defending state champs.
Yeah, and even obviously you got South Platte and Ascension Catholic. That New Orleans
It's
district,
by no measure easy, but it's
that New Orleans
nothing.
district last year in 1A was a bit more of a formality. It was going to be Riverside. This year it's like, okay, we got South Platte, we got Ascension Catholic in there. And even if you look, they end the season at Catholic of Point Coupee, who had a pretty good run last year as well. They're always good. So it's a matter of, I really like that schedule because even the 1A school they do play, or the 1A school they are playing in non-district, is still a very good team. And even Covenant Christian, that's it. They've won like 19 of their last 20 or something in the regular season. Like they've been really good. It hasn't quite translated to playoff success for Covenant yet, but that obviously it's eventually one of those things where just you keep pushing into the playoffs. Eventually, that the glass ceiling will break. They just haven't quite broken the ceiling yet. But I really like that schedule for them. And that district too is 10-1A got a lot better. I can complain all I want about Ascension Catholic being in there for travel reasons. I'm not going to complain about Ascension Catholic being in there because they're bad. That's a great team.
But being said, yeah, that wraps up this episode. That's our way too early preview for this year. We hope to be back with a new episode and at some point within the next few months, obviously, as we learn more information, more schedules. Once we have enough compiled information, obviously, we'll put out another episode with kind of an updated preview, I guess would be the right term to put. Still before the summer, or I guess not till the summer at this rate. I mean, you don't really learn too much info. Probably by May would be our next real episode, unless we kind of come up with an idea for something that we can throw out at y'all. But being said, yeah, once again, thank you for staying with us through this, listening, and we'll obviously miss having a third member. I mean, this is 3 deep in the boot for a reason, 3 people. Obviously we don't have that third member. However, we're still going to put out the same quality of content, if not higher, with this being our second season. And yeah, Matthew, do you have anything to add, really?
I think just kind of continuing and thanking for support and hoping kind of as this goes through. I think that's kind of just it, to thank everyone, thank them for, especially because this is the rough patch right now.
Yeah,
These
this is
kind of
when there's
few
nothing going
months,
on. Yeah.
this is the hard part to really get anything out because there's not a lot to really talk about. It kind
Yeah,
of
and
is very
trying to keep our base audience and everything. But next year, the season coming up, our big plan is to probably stream more than anything. We're still going to do the podcast weekly, but it may not be as long, of episodes as it was last year. They may be a lot shorter, but that's because we want to put a lot of our focus into getting out the games. I mean, um, still, where this isn't being hosted from Louisiana, at least for a lot of these episodes, because we are traveling all the time. We're in different places. I will say Matthew's in Chicago. I'm in Alabama at the moment. So there's, you know, distance considerations and just trying to get back. I can always get back. Not so easy for Matthew as far as flying and things like that. So we're limited by, when we can get in. But when we get in, 100% we're trying to stream games and get them out to y'all, and that's where most of our joy comes from. Our joy and our pleasure comes from meeting the players, meeting the coaches, meeting the people in the press boxes, and just connecting with the fans, being in the stands, just things like that. So we can't wait to do that. We'll be in talks with a lot of schools. We encourage, we know we have a lot of listeners from these schools who are in positions, etc., within these athletic programs. Reach out to us, send us an email once we get closer to the season. And, obviously you don't know your full schedule yet, but we'd love to come out there and, yeah, tell us and we'll make it work is how we'll put it. For the most part, we'll make it work. And we're going to have adding more people, like I said at the beginning, for camera. We have new people on cameras, and it's going to be a little more of a professional setup. Putting in a little more money into it, and I think the results are going to prove worthwhile. But being said, yeah, we can't wait for the upcoming season, and thank you for joining us today. And that's it.